This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Bam Adebayo. I mean, I don't know what more is there to be said about Bam Adebayo. He is a great young man. We all know that he's a super decent human being, and so is Alexander Barkov. And the sad part is, we used to have a football team here called the Miami. Well, I mean, we have a football team here called the Miami Dolphins. We used to have a defensive unit back in the early 80s called the Killer Bees. And Bam and Barkov could never, ever be a part of the Killer Bees. And do you know why they can't be a part of the Killer Bees? Because they don't possess the killer. Watch Jimmy Butler. That's a bee that brings the killer. Did you watch him last night? That's a killer. Did you watch Dwayne Wade against the Dallas Mavericks? That's a killer. That's what killers do. They feed off of these kind of moments. They want to be great. They want the spotlight. They're like Jack Nicholson in a few good men. They want to be on that wall. You need them on that wall. And that's what stars do. Stars want to be at the foul line. Stars want to take the three-point shot. Right? What's Gene Hackman say in The Replacements when he asks Shane Falco, "What do you want, Shane?" "I want the ball." What does he answer? Winners always want the ball. Because that's what they are. That's how they see themselves. Bam Adebayo does not view himself as a winner. He views himself as a blue-collar, hard-working man. I'm going to hustle. I'm going to out-hustle you. And Dwayne Wade says, I'm going to cut your heart out. Magic Johnson says, I'm going to cut your heart out. Walter Payton was maybe the most decent human being you will ever run into in your life. Soft-spoken, super polite, always a gentleman. Did you watch him on the football field? Did you ever watch him on the football field? He was going to run you over. He was going to run through you. He was going to put his helmet in the middle of your chest like a ram, like a battering ram, and he might lift your ass up at the same time in the process. You might have a buried chest when Walter Payton is done. Because there's a difference. You have to be able to separate the two. You can be a great person, but the second you get on the field, this Shohei Ohtani guy, this guy looks like a pretty cool dude, right? I don't hear anything bad about him, right? He carries himself very professionally. Well, he got his teammate came to the mound and he embarrassed his teammate, who happens to be one of the great players in the game. Do you know why? Because Shohei Ohtani is either going to hit the game-winning home run or throw the game-winning strikeout. Because the dude's got dog in him. Looks like a nice guy, but man, he's got that streak in him because he's a badass mofo. He's got the weight of the world on him. I mean, he's doing something that's never been done in baseball ever. Ever. Babe Ruth did it for, a couple of years, like 2 years or something like that. Not much more. He didn't pitch very long, right? This guy's doing both at the highest level. Also looks like a really nice guy. There's nothing wrong with being a really nice guy, but then when you need to be a son of a bitch, can you be a son of a bitch? And that's the problem with Bam Adebayo. Bam Adebayo does not have the SOB in him. The Miami Heat failed in giving him a max contract or near max, whatever. He's not worth it. He's exactly what I've called him for a couple of years now. He's a super role player. He talked about his 18 shots and wanted to take the next step, and he started off aggressive. I'll give him credit. I mentioned it and everything. I'm going to give you credit if you deserve it. But sure enough, by the All-Star break, he was out of gas, and he couldn't do it, and he couldn't bring it every night. And that's what son of a bitches do every night. They bring it every night. Michael Jordan, it doesn't matter, every night. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, doesn't matter. LeBron James, you name it. These guys, they bring it every night because every night they demand to be the best. Every night they want to be the best. Every night they want to win the game for their team. They want to carry their team. They want the burden. That's what great players want. They're not afraid of getting the finger pointed at them because they lost the game, because they know that the one game they lost, they will win 15 other ones for every one that they lose. Because nobody's perfect. You're going to lose some. But the great ones, they rarely lose. They don't think of it that way. And that's the problem with Bam Adebayo. Bam Adebayo is not wired to be great. He's wired to be a role player. He's wired to be blue collar. He's wired to give you great effort every night, but he's not wired to be your anchor. And the Heat have forced a square peg in a round hole. Okay? For several years, the Florida Panthers were led by two guys like Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. Really good players. Not superstars. Not number ones. Not even number twos. And everybody found that out. And then they broke them up. And then they brought Kawhi Leonard in. That's a real number one. Kyle Lowry, it's funny because you're Jimmy Butler and you bring your friend over, and your friend, even at his peak, was never good enough to be your Robin. Because he was never good enough to be a 1 or 2, because he and DeMar DeRozan continually failed in Toronto. So they can perform when there's no pressure, but they couldn't perform with all the pressure because that's not who they are. And Barkov and Huberdeau, same thing. They were Lowry and DeRozan in hockey. Guys that really good players. They can put up points. So can DeRozan and Lowry. But none of them were number ones. None of them were franchise players. We're now learning that. There's a lot of those guys that, in life, they're really good in regular season moments, but they're not really the stars that are going to carry you. And Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan have never been that. Sure, DeMar DeRozan's had a couple of nice years here in Chicago. No pressure, dude. There's nobody there. There's no expectations for the Chicago Bulls. You're not winning anything. So he's going to get all the shots he wants, and he's had a nice little 2-year stretch. But is DeMar DeRozan the answer? Never was. Neither was Kyle Lowry. But you forced a square peg in the round hole with Bam Adebayo. You forced it also with Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero's peak was in the bubble. That's it. The scowl in the bubble. That was his pinnacle, because that's all he was ever going to be. He wasn't really going to take the next step to be the star that can carry you. Nah, he's a good player. He can score points, all that, but he's not the guy. And that's the difference. And that's why Bam is where he's at right now. That's the most frustrating part about watching that game, is that he's the only stud on the court. He's the only SOB on the court. What a shame. And Bam will never be that, unfortunately.
old show.